Purdue made back-to-back bowl games for the first time since 2011 and 2012. Can they keep that streak alive in 2019? Find out here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.
Purdue made their second straight bowl game under Jeff Brohm, but it certainly didn't look like that was going to be the case at the beginning of the 2018 season. Purdue started the year off 0-3, losing those three games by a combined 8 points to Northwestern, Eastern Michigan, and Missouri. But then the Boilermakers won 5 of their next 6 games, including 3 over ranked opponents and none bigger than their 49-20 win over then number 2 Ohio State. This year, Purdue is looking to make it 3 straight bowl games, but I will say they were a very difficult team to predict. They only returned 3 starters on the offensive side of the ball, but 2 of them are major playmakers. They have Elijah Sindelar at quarterback, who wasn't the starter at the beginning of last year. David Blow was their quarterback. He goes down. Sindelar comes back in, who had playing experience and did a great job. The key is going to be keeping him healthy for Purdue. If Purdue fails to do that, they will struggle mightily in 2019. And then, of course, they have one of the biggest playmakers in all of college football, Rondale Moore, over 1,200 yards receiving last year and 12 touchdowns. He's extremely difficult to contain and at any moment can make a huge play for this Boilermakers offense. Their defense, though, will be the strength. 9 returning starters this year for Purdue, but they allowed 30 points per game last year. Going to have to take some major steps forward, major improvements if they want to get back to a third straight bowl game. They do return their top 3 tacklers, though, including Marcus Bailey at linebacker and Navon Mosley in the secondary. So I love this Purdue defense. Can the offense make up for it? But when they have their quarterback and when they have Rondale Moore, this offense can still put up some big-time numbers. They open up the season against Nevada, and I will say that I admire Purdue for what they are doing in the non-conference. They scheduled a decent Mountain West opponent in Nevada and then took the liberty of scheduling an SEC opponent and a Big 12 opponent. And I think that's a phenomenal job done by this athletic department. Even though Vanderbilt and TCU aren't necessarily the biggest threats in the SEC and Big 12, it's still quality opponents compared to your FCS schools. I think Purdue opens the season with a win against Nevada, a team that beat Oregon State last year, so has done fairly well in recent years against Power 5 schools. Oregon State, not one of the bigger ones, but still took care of business, won their bowl game last year over Arkansas State. But I think Purdue takes care of business even though this game is on the road. They then come back home to face off against Vanderbilt, and this is Purdue's 3rd straight season that they will be facing an SEC opponent. They faced Missouri the past 2 years, of course got killed by Auburn in their bowl game last year, but now they're facing facing Vanderbilt, a team that I do think Purdue takes care of. While Vanderbilt known for their defense, this year their offense could be a bigger threat than they have been in years past. They return Riley Neal, a quarterback out of Ball State, a transfer quarterback at that, but the biggest playmaker for Vanderbilt will be Keyshawn Vaughn, who averaged 7.9 yards per carry last year for Vanderbilt. Purdue's defense is going to have to step it up because they allowed 168 rushing yards per game, but I think they contain Vaughn, force Riley Neal, who's going to be new to the Vanderbilt system, to try to win this game through the air. Home field advantage and a very strong defense wins this game for Purdue. They are 2-0 to kick off the year. Much better start than 2018 already. Then they get TCU, and it's an intriguing game, but I'm going to give them a loss here to the Horned Frogs. TCU coming off a bye week, so they will be rested coming into this game, and this seems like the bounce-back year that Kerry Patterson has been prone to doing during his time with TCU. The TCU ended the game on a 3-game win streak despite facing tons of injuries, and if they can find out who their quarterback's going to be, which will probably be Alex Delton, they're going to be just fine and could be a surprise team in the Big 12. They also returned Jalen Reagor, one of the best wide receivers in the entire Big 12, and they have Darius Anderson and Siwo Alanalua at the running back position. This TCU team's the real deal, and Purdue will follow them in Week 3. They get a bye week going into the Minnesota game, and this is another intriguing game. You're kicking off Big Ten play here. This is where it starts to matter. And with a wide-open Big Ten West, Purdue is absolutely a contender to win this division, no doubt in my mind. And it starts here with Minnesota, a team that some people are picking as the dark horse favorite to win the Western Division. Both these teams coming off a bye. Last year, Purdue fell to Minnesota 41-10. And you sit here and you question, can Purdue even beat Minnesota this year? They fell by 31 last year, and this Minnesota team is much better in 2019 than they were in 2018. And I'm here to tell you that yes, Yes, Purdue can beat Minnesota, and they will beat the Golden Gophers. As much as I have much respect I have for PJ Fleck, as much as I like this Minnesota team, I think their offense will be their strength. I think Purdue's defense shuts that down. Rondale Moore and Sindelar make enough plays offensively to beat the Golden Gophers at home, and they are 3-1 with a 1-0 start in conference play. They go on the road, though, to face off against Penn State. And as I've said in previous other Big Ten videos here, everybody is quick to write off Penn State because of how much they lost in 2019. And those people that are doing that don't know enough about the Penn State football program. James Franklin is still going to do phenomenal things as head coach for them. I have a lot of faith in Sean Clifford at the quarterback position. I think this Penn State football team is still a legitimate threat in the entire Big Ten, not just the East, but the entire Big Ten, and they will get the job done against Purdue. Happy Valley also a very difficult place to play, and I think Purdue falls for their first conference loss of the year. Coming back home, though, to face off against Maryland. And if this game was at Maryland, if the Terrapins were hosting, I would more than likely be picking Maryland in that game. This is a Maryland team led by Mike Locksley, a brand new head coach, that will probably not go through the rebuilding pains and the rebuilding stages that most new coaches have to go through. Locksley brings in a veteran quarterback in Josh Jackson, the transfer from Virginia Tech, has a solid running back crew led by Anthony McFarland, and a defense that returns 5 starters. This Maryland team could surprise a little bit in the Big Ten this year. Not enough, though, to come on the road and beat the Boilermakers. I think Purdue gets a win over this team who, as I mentioned, I praise their offense, but in the end, the strength and the veterans on the defensive side of the ball get the job done, and Maryland's defense is not going to have enough to shut down this Purdue offense that if you have any doubt, if you think they're going to struggle, that's fine, but we'll have worked everything out by October 12th. Purdue gets a win over the Terrapins, and they are 2-1 in the Big Ten. They come on the road here against Iowa, though, and really once you hit October 19th, that's when the schedule really gets brutal, especially in conference play for Purdue. And this is going to determine whether or not they're legitimate contenders in the West, or if they could just be another 6 or 7 win team that goes to their 3rd straight bowl. This game against Iowa going to be very key for Purdue in seeing what they are made of. Last year, they beat the Hawkeyes 38-36, and Purdue has actually won the past 2 over Iowa. This year, though, it is at Kinnick. I know 2 years ago they were able to win there. This year, it's not going to be the case. Kirk Ferentz has this team ready to go at Iowa. Nathan Stanley returns at quarterback, and this defense is the real deal. Now, while they might not win the West, while they might not crack more than 9 wins, Iowa's still a dangerous team, one you can never overlook. Kirk Ferentz, a coach you can never doubt, never want to overlook either. Purdue falls in what could be another close one to the Hawkeyes, but does fall on the road. They bounce back, though, a home win against Illinois. And I was quick to put that one down because they have won 3 straight games against the Fighting Illini, including a 46-7 win over them last year. Now, while I do believe that Illinois will be much improved in 2019, all those transfers they were able to get, on top of 10 returning starters defensively and 7 offensively, this Illinois team will improve greatly, but this game is at home for Purdue. And I just don't think Illinois is there yet. I think next year could be their year to maybe crack a bowl game or take some major steps forward. They're going to be much more competitive. And I can actually see this game being fairly low scoring because of the strengths of the 2 defenses. But Purdue is going to have the strength offensively, the edge offensively, and they get the win over Lovie Smith and his crew. And then, to kick off November, where anything can happen, they host Nebraska, the heavy favorite in the Big Ten West. Some are even calling for a potential college football playoff berth for the Cornhuskers. And I'm not going to go that far. But I am going to go as far to say that Purdue will upset Nebraska at home to kick off November. And this is a Nebraska team that at this point in the season could be a 1-loss team, maybe even undefeated if they live up to their hype. Led by Scott Frost, led by Adrian Martinez at quarterback, who will take major strides forward, and a defense that will improve greatly after a 4-8 season in 2018. But this game reminds me a lot of Purdue's game against Ohio State last year. A game where Purdue could very well be underdogs against one of the best teams in the entire Big Ten. And while I don't think they'll beat Nebraska by 29 points that they did to Ohio State, I do think they beat the Cornhuskers in a major, major upset and a huge win for Jeff Brohm and his squad. Absolutely. And last year they beat Nebraska 42-28. Add that on top of that, I think that, this, to me, adds up for a Purdue victory. I like this game a lot for Purdue. A major trap game for Nebraska. And if the Cornhuskers were to pull this one out, expect it to be very, very close. Northwestern on the road right after that win over Nebraska. A huge win over Nebraska at that. Last year, they lost to Northwestern 31-27 in the season opener. And that was a game that Purdue probably should have won, honestly, or at least had a chance to go down there and win it had it not been for some stupid penalties down the stretch. This year, it's on the road against Northwestern, a team that won the West last year. Let's keep that in mind. They did win the Big Ten West in 2018, and now they bring in Hunter Johnson, the transfer quarterback from Clemson. But Northwestern does face a difficult schedule. Northwestern does lose plenty of talent this season. But I do think that the Wildcats are able to pull this one out on or at home over the Boilermakers. They're high off their win over Nebraska. I'm not saying they're going to overlook Northwestern by any means, but this would be the prime opportunity for Pat Fitzgerald and the Wildcats to get an upset of their own, and especially a year they might be borderline bowl eligible. They get a win over Purdue at home, a much-needed one for them, and Purdue falls to Northwestern right after that win over Nebraska, much like Purdue fell right after their win over Ohio State last year. They get a bye week, their final 2 games, and by this point, they have clinched bowl eligibility. They have 6 wins. They're good to go. They're going to their 3rd straight bowl, but they want more. They want 7 wins, 8 wins, one of their best seasons yet under Jeff Brohm. Unfortunately, their potential 7th win will not come against Wisconsin. Yes, they're going to be off a week of rest here. And this last year against Wisconsin was an absolute thriller. A 47-44, 3 overtime victory for the Badgers. But Purdue's not going to be able to keep it that close this year. Wisconsin, having one of the best running backs in the entire nation in Jonathan Taylor, Wisconsin rushed for 385 yards last year against Purdue. That rushing defense we mentioned at the beginning is going to have to step up big in this game. They're not going to be able to do enough, though. On the road, a very improved Wisconsin team. They fall to the Badgers here, but do get a win over their rival in Indiana to close out the year. This game has had bowl eligibility on the line the past 2 years for both these schools. Purdue has won both of them. This year, bowl eligibility will not be on the line, as they would have already clinched it if they can win that game against Nebraska. But Indiana could need this game to go bowling. Purdue, with this game at home, will prevent their rival from getting to the postseason for the 3rd straight year. And Purdue goes to their 3rd straight bowl game with a 7-5 record, which would be the best record under Jeff Brohm in the regular season. 6-6 the past 2 years, winning their bowl game 2 years ago, falling in their bowl game last year, 7-5 with a chance at an 8-win season in year 3 under Jeff Brohm, continuing to lead the Boilermakers in the right direction. And like I said, it's a very difficult team to predict. A lot of these wins and losses could be interchanged, but right now I think 7-5 is the most realistic bet for the Boilermakers, a team that is not getting as much hype and is not being talked about as much in this wide open Big Ten West. So guys, as always, thank you for watching us. Go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert, and make sure you go check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for our newsletter and sign up for our expert picks. For just $30, you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks, including the postseason. I can promise you that is a deal you do not want to pass up. So guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.